Lois, there's something I have to tell you. I'm really...
I was, at first, really nervous about tonight. But then I decided, well, darn it, I was going to show you the time of your life.
James, congratulations.
Hey, Benny, how you doing?
What a result, man. I got to tell you, there's people who do a lot of barking with no results, and you are not one of them.
I'm in the field right now, actually. I pulled to the side of the road. Our team is doing a lot of these investigative deep dives on the deep state. We call it draining the deep state. And, he was resigned, fired, senior officials told us, and I said today on X, Benny, that, people complain about the media, but as you know, we are the media. So
that's right.
We got to do the work that they're not willing to do, obviously.
So this is a fascinating case. This guy was high up, Congressman Corey Mills, who is himself a veteran and has done 20 years in the service, various capacities, was talking about how important this individual was, like how powerful these the branch commanders, right? Like, so these branch chiefs at the DOD, like, you're not getting this isn't an intern. No. And I don't think you'd ever, I don't think you'd ever really go after like somebody at so low level. This is somebody of great power. So can we start with that? Like where did it come about where you were like, well, let's start here?
Well, sometimes we don't really chase. We don't. I'm going to go after the branch chief. I didn't intend to do that. The stories kind of find us. We don't know who's going to get caught up in our dragnet. But this is not a low level person. And, with all the investigative work we do, people are very narcissistic, very egotistical. And people say, how do these people keep falling for this? That's a common refrain. They're not really falling for anything. This is who these people are. And no one holds them accountable for anything. So it's totally outside their experience that someone like me or someone that works for me could be sitting with them and they could be held accountable. They just don't think that way. They don't think like you and I do. But obviously, this is a huge week for a huge month for Hegseth and everything that's happening with the leaks, and people are claiming he's under fire. And now we're kind of fighting back. We're showing that there's insubordination. There's no chain of command. There's kind of anarchy happening. We're putting a face to these deep state officials. But no, Benny, we don't really say I'm going to target the branch chief with this sort of investigative reporting stuff. The tips and leads and information come to me. I don't set out to obtain it. So
I have a question for you, because I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly not a JAG officer. And we're going to have one on next week. But at what point do you begin to charge? At what point is this treasonous? Because you're on camera saying you're going to resist the commander-in-chief. You're on camera saying you're going to sabotage him. You're on camera saying that he's not the commander-in-chief. But he is, and you collect a military salary, which is different from a normal Fed. For a normal Fed, it's bad. But this is particularly egregious because in wartime, this is the scum who's going to be following orders from Trump.
That's the exact opposite of what people in the military are supposed to do. I mean, this is the exact opposite. I'm not an attorney. I've spoken to attorneys. Is this a violation of the Espionage Act? Is this a violation of? Is it against the law? Probably. But the question I have, I'm not in law enforcement, Benny, and I think a lot of people in my audience constantly say, when are these people going to get charged?
Yes.
I understand it takes a while to build a case. So the flip side is, unlike the left, who just raids my home and takes my stuff, I don't think it's good for law enforcement to go after someone unless they've built a case. However, the question I have for the Republican people in law enforcement is, do you have the political will to do the right thing and actually enforce the law? That's not a journalistic question. Will they do anything about this? I don't know, because it requires a lot of courage to hold these people accountable in the law enforcement context. But this guy was a supervisor of a team at DOD. What we know about him is he managed a team of 15 people, like you said, not low level. We'll see if people in law enforcement actually enforce the law.
I think that I speak for most people when I say that no matter the president, I wouldn't like to see this inside of my military. This means that there's really some major breakdown happening in the military. And this follows a thread of insubordination or just outright traitorism. The way that I view Mark Milley calling the Chinese generals and snitching on what Trump's about to do or not do is just straight up traitorism. And then, also, you bundle that together with the people on bases who won't put up Trump's portrait. And you start to create like a very disturbing kaleidoscope here of people that really don't respect the chain of command.
Yeah, and it follows on the heels of another report we did exactly a year ago where a CIA official actually in a restaurant took out his badge and said, we weren't sharing information with Trump. We were collecting intelligence and not willing to share it. It's just a complete violation of the chain of command, as you say. And he, too, was fired. I think what I have to do is clone myself, Benny, because the good news is they're getting fired. They're being held accountable, at least in that respect. So perhaps we just need a legion of people to catch these people on video. And perhaps that's the accountability that we're seeking, to root them out. Clearly, there is a shame. They're being shamed. They're clearly being embarrassed because they're being fired or resigning. So maybe that's the accountability that we need, if not law enforcement, is just citizen journalism on steroids.
When that story broke, you came on the show and I asked you about a Trump administration and what your work would be in the Trump administration. You told me exactly this. You told our audience that this is exactly what you'd be doing. You said, in fact, like we're not going to ratchet down. We're going to ratchet up during a Trump administration. We face some headwinds because I think people who are fans of Trump thinks that everything's going to be solved like on the border. That's just not so. And one of the things I've heard from, I'm not going to name names, but I'm investigating. I'm doing a massive story right now, a deep dive into corruption in D.C. And what I've heard from people who run the agencies is they've got like whatever it is, 50,000, 80,000, 200,000 people in there, and they can only like put in 4 or 5 people. And then they have this sort of mini deep state within their own agency. And even if they're a good person, like at the top, even if they mean well, they don't really have a lot of autonomy over what happens under their employ. So I hope that they don't view me as an enemy, because sometimes I've heard that too. It's like, well, you're making me look bad because you're exposing, bad stuff happening under my command. It's like, listen, I'm trying to help reform these agencies. So it's been a little tricky, Benny, in conjunction with some of these agency people, because they view me perhaps, getting ahead of them. But I would hope that we view this as a symbiotic effort to root out waste, fraud, and corruption. Yeah, I mean, like if everybody is rowing the same direction down the river, it really doesn't matter what boat you're in, right? As long as everybody's like, we all want these people to be exposed and rooted out. I mean, this is a question that I think is more of a tradecraft question, James.
Yeah.
Why are these guys so bad at this? These are America's spies. These are America's intel experts, and you've caught now a baker's dozen of intelligence experts that are gooning on camera.
Question. That's a really great question. I think what strikes me is, what if I was a Chinese spy? That's the concern, right? What if I was the enemy? I'm not. I don't have malintent. I'm not trying to blackmail anybody. I'm trying to report on the public's right to know. But what if I wasn't? What if I was the bad guy, a Russian, a Chinese spy? That's really disconcerting. And it goes back to that question. Most frequently asked question is, how do these people keep falling for it? And I think it stems from their psychology. It's this part of the swamp, the soup that they swim in down there. They're just so egotistical and driven by the wrong things. They're not there to serve the country. There's some type of psychological issues in Washington, and it's ripe for the picking. I don't think it's going to change, Benny. I think no matter how many of these I release, they're going to keep falling for it. And by the way, some of these I do myself. I'm literally sitting there wearing a wig, and they're not even thinking about what they're saying. They're almost like they're confessing to somebody else. So it's really a deep-rooted psychological issue in our government, and we're just going to have to root them out one by one and dismantle the deep state brick by brick.
So here we have the footage of James O'Keefe you did it before it was cool, James, having margaritas with people that wish to protect terrorists. And you're just here as James O'Keefe. This is how bad they are. If I'm correct, this is somebody who works in the National Security Council for Joe Biden. Am I correct here?
That's correct. Yeah, are you talking about the guy from about a year ago, the individual at the White House? Yes.
Yeah. And you're just here as James O'Keefe. There's like not even a disguise. You're just going as James.
Not really. I mean, I had glasses. I dyed my hair a little bit, but what's remarkable about this footage, Benny, is there's a really interesting moment. He's talking. This guy is not an idiot. He went to Harvard, although I guess that doesn't mean anything. But he's not stupid in the sense that he's an articulate man. And about halfway through this meeting, this White House guy, this is again a year ago during the Biden administration, he goes, "Wait a second, I know nothing about you." He realizes that he's been spilling all these secrets. And of course, I'm pretending to be like I'm putting on a front, like it's a gay date, and I'm, pretending to be his, gay lover or something. And I go, "Well, you're like James Bond. You're so fascinating." And he goes, "Oh, stop it." And he keeps talking. So this is a guy who works at the Eisenhower building, works with the White House. And again, what if I was a Chinese spy? So we're kind of testing how, I guess, incompetent or compromised some of our people in our government are. And it's not a good scene.
Goodness. I'm like, what about real spy? I mean, what are actual spies getting out of it?
I'm very concerned about it. I'm very concerned.
You just need a grinder profile, and the worst regimes on earth have all of our secrets. Okay, so James, tell me quickly a follow-up kind of to our last interview. What are you working on now? What can you tell me? And what is the attitude? You sort of touched on it with the Trump administration, and that you don't want to be seen as an enemy. We see that Tulsi Gabbard is referring people for criminal prosecution. We see that judges are being arrested this morning, 2 of them, for harboring criminal aliens. What are you seeing from inside of the Trump administration? Are you seeing positive signs for the cleanup here?
It really is to be determined. We're approaching 100 days. Again, I see both sides of it. On one hand, I don't know why people within the deep state haven't been arrested yet. And here's what I would say to you, Benny. If Kamala Harris was the president, right, what are the odds that someone like me or someone on the right who didn't necessarily break the law, what are the odds there'd be an indictment? 100%?
100%.
Okay, 100%. Let's agree it's 100% likely. So I guess the question, and this is a rhetorical question I don't know the answer to, is why does that dynamic exist? Why is it that it's 100% the case that people would be indicted or arrested? And the only answer I could think that's rational is, well, maybe they're just taking their time and they're doing the right thing. I don't believe in political prosecutions. I'm against that. The ACLU defended me when the FBI raided my home. A liberal group defended me. I'm not about I mean more, there should be equality before the law. And we know that people in Washington are breaking the law. We know that. I'm working on a massive story, not just a dating investigation, but a real big government corruption investigation. I'm spending many months on it, on the theme of Doge and some of the bigger graft and corruption. And I'm really building a case. I'm catching multiple people on tape, not releasing it right away, and it'll come out in the next month or two. And they're breaking the law. So the question is, does the U.S. attorney in that jurisdiction have the will to actually enforce the law? I think they will. I think this one's going to lead to indictments and jail time, because without accountability, our notion of freedom is just an illusion. If no one's held accountable for anything, then then we're no longer America, as far as I'm concerned.
James, I know we're up against a hard out, but I have to ask a follow-up to what you just said. This is something that we've seized on regularly on this program, because President Trump on Air Force One is asked about Elon and Doge, and he goes, "You don't understand. They just discovered something horrible. It's horrible." Then Carolyn Levitt gets asked about that, and she says, "I'm not going to get ahead of the president," which is always a thing you say when something's cooking. At the very same time, Elon posts this, quote tweeting Chuck Schumer, putting him on blast, saying, "You couldn't possibly be in on the corruption, could you, Chuck?" No, that couldn't possibly be the case. Do you know anything about this, James? Can you lay the groundwork for what's to come?
What I can say is that what I can say to the audience here, because I understand their desire for immediate arrests, but I can say this as someone who's really involved in rooting out high level corruption. I haven't released it yet. I'm talking about a massive bombshell. It takes time to build a case. If I just put out a base hit right now, which I can do, I can release what I have, but maybe someone doesn't get arrested because they're going to say it's an inchoate crime. They're going to find some technicality or whatever. So it does take time for someone like me as an investigator. I'm not in the government, but as an investigative reporter, maybe prosecutors do something with my material. I really have to get them dead to rights. So I can't just go out and spill what I'm working on yet, because that's going to interfere with my ability to finish my investigation. So I will say that, in fairness to the people who are probably trying to hold these people accountable, that's the other side of things. And I don't think we should just, engage in political prosecutions and witch hunts, much like what happened to my team with the Ashley Biden diary. So let's give it another month or so, another 2 months, as we're 100 days in, and see the progress there.
Okay, well, we await your bombshell report. Obviously, when James says things like this, when other people come on the program and say, like, the work I'm doing is going to lead to indictments, the vast majority of them haven't ever done that. James has done that. James did that. James has done this before.
I mean, I've known you for 15. Remember the Acorn story? There were like 5 or 6 tapes. If the work that I'm about to release, I'm talking about in a month and a half, doesn't lead to indictments, then I'm going to come on your program and I'm going to be pissed off because I have these people breaking the law. Now I got to get a little more so they don't, come out some technicality. But I'm going to be upset at these prosecutors, and I will hold these prosecutors accountable. I'll investigate them because, we are a nation of laws. We're supposed to be equal before the law, e pluribus unum. That's what the United States is all about. And this is our opportunity. But I have faith. Content is king. You catch them on video. Stay tuned.
Wow. Just a final follow-up. This is Acorn 2.0, or is it bigger?
No, it's much bigger because we're talking about corrupt government graft and corruption, billions with a B, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars. Stay tuned.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you know where to stay tuned. James O'Keefe has 3.1 million subscribers on X. James O'Keefe and his media group, O'Keefe Media Group, can be found everywhere on all social media. Stay tuned and subscribe. Keep fighting for the people that are fighting for us. Godspeed, James.
Stay tuned. Thank you.